Everybody is dealing with something. And that's really why I want to share these stories, because the more stories we tell, the more people can relate to them, and hopefully we can help, get through their own struggle. Yeah, so it's super simple to do a podcast. You basically just need a couple of microphones and sit down and talk for a little while.
I didn't really have any other option. There's no way I was going to grovel and be negative. Yeah. I can't be that influence on the people that are watching me right now. This is a test.
We're constantly publishing new content. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.
All right, so here we are on the podcast, and today we have Lindsey Duncan. We also have a very special guest coming in all the way from Missouri. We have David Hines, and I have to take a moment to just kind of point out the obvious that we have Duncan Hines at the table.
We're going to be talking about cake mix today.
We're talking about cake. We're going to do a little baking today. No,
It's not a ketchup.
Yeah. But you actually just shared before we started a few minutes ago that they actually used to call you Duncan Hines.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Surprisingly enough, in high school, I over 1 year, I developed the ability to dunk the basketball.
Dunk it. I love it.
And so I was changing school. So when I showed up, I had to make an impression.
Yes.
And I started. They turned me Duncan Hines for a while.
That's hilarious.
Hines.
Duncan Hines.
I was just Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, right. So,
Duncan Hines.
Very interesting. We got like sugar. Yeah. A lot of sugar today.
A lot of sugar in this conversation.
Yeah. We are not talking about sugar today.
Actually, we will.
Well,
okay.
Yeah.
I promise you we will.
You're going to bring that up,
I'm
but
bring
not
up
in the
sugar.
way that...
Not in a positive way.
Right.
Not in a positive light. No.
Yeah. So we are going to talk about David's story today. I love David's story.
It's unbelievable.
It really is. You might say that the opposite is true. You might say, well, we've encouraged you, but in all reality, you have encouraged us so many times through your Facebook posts. Just to give a little background information, I'm going to let you guys kind of explain how you first connected here in a minute, but you're a part of our course through Revive Events. You've taken our online course. We met for the first time in person this past, early April. Mm-hmm. When we had our first in-person retreat, and we sat and talked for a long time while we were having lunch that day. And I have been very drawn to your mindset and your positive attitude and your very profound faith in God throughout your journey. That's something that I really resonate and I talk about a lot, obviously, is mindset and faith. And so I've always connected with you in that way. And I want you to talk some more about that as well. But first tell me, because I know you through Lindsey, because Lindsey knows you. So let's talk about, how did you guys first connect? It's been several years ago. How did that all come to be?
Okay. I'm going to go first.
Yeah,
right. Go for it.
The very first time I met Lindsey was at an event where I heard him speak. Very common first meeting. And I thought, well, I need to get my picture with this guy. A lot of people did. I wasn't alone. So I found my way down to where he was, and eye-to-eye contact with people, talking with them. I wedged my way in. We got a quick picture. This was a lot of years ago, probably 15 a long time.
Yeah.
And so knowing who he was and knowing what his impact was, I had always kept in my radar and as best I could. But as time progressed and I needed some help with a nutritional plan, basically to combat a major serious diagnosis, I reached out to him on Messenger, and he didn't know me from anybody.
Yeah.
And I made sure he knew that. We cleared that up, and the story goes from there, really. I started doing Facebook posts. He did respond with me, and I'll talk about that in a little while. But I had Facebook posts that he was supportive of, and he gave me some great direction, and that's kind of the basis of the beginning, I think.
Yeah. So you first initially met kind of through previous companies,
Correct.
hearing him speak, and then years later reached back out through Messenger when you were going through a health issue, basically. Yeah.
And that's happened a lot. I mean, that happens, unfortunately. It happens, every week, every month.
Right.
But David was a very special situation and very special individual. And I think the King, Monica and Bill King, may have, if I remember correctly, Monica and Bill King had reached out to me and said they had a very dear friend that had a very serious diagnosis, very serious, and they asked me if I would do them a favor and if I would make myself available to give him some guidance and to teach him and kind of educate him through the process. And I looked him up on Facebook and kind of looked at his life and his family and just kind of just got a sense, got a feeling, and I said, yes, I would.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you and I talked a couple of weeks ago, you were like, I don't know if this is okay to mention. And I was like, it's absolutely okay to mention. You pointed out to me that Lindsey reached out to you and talked to you, through your personal difficult time when he was also going through a difficult time. And you said that really,
it was big.
Touched you a lot.
Yeah. For a person with his profile to be able to be at the position he was and the depths that he was in a different country at the time, and me just throw out a request for him to respond to that.
Yeah.
When I realized that happened, that was just a very personal. This man cares about people.
Yeah.
And I felt very honored by that.
Yeah.
I did not know the Bill and Monica story, though. That was new to me just now.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, I know them very well. I mean, we knew them for a company, but I didn't know they were partners in getting you on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
They were.
Very cool. That's great.
And I think I wanted to make that point because I think there's something really profound to be said about, that experience is a lot of the times when and I've found this for myself, and I'm sure you guys will agree, when you're suffering yourself, sometimes the best way you can help yourself is to reach out and help somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
and
I think that is so important to point out because it's just it kind of takes your focus off of your own hurt, and when you can feel like you're making a difference for somebody else, it helps you along in the process.
100%.
So
It fulfills you.
it does.
100%.
It does. 100%. So kind of take me along the journey of how you guys start talking, how you develop, a friendship, what this looks like as it relates to your health prognosis. I mean, I think people need to understand like what you were dealing with and the seriousness of it.
In the very beginning of the diagnosis, when I realized it was that serious, I decided to put 3 things into play. And the number one was God first. And there's some more I'd like to say about it later, but that was the first part. A strategy is key. It's essential. And the second part was nutrition. I wasn't always the best in nutrition or focused on nutrition, but I knew somebody who was. And so I wanted the best I knew of. Regardless of the response, I just want to see where it went if I reached out to that person. And when I did, I heard nothing for 3 days. And then 3 days later, Lindsey said, I'll call you in an hour. And I don't know. I mean, that's just how it came across. So I'm like, Chrissy.
That's probably all I said, too, right?
That's all you said. I'll call you in an hour.
Whether you're free or not, I'm calling you in an hour.
Yeah, whatever it was. I'm like, well, this time.
Be available.
Sounds about right.
And I was very available. So Chrissy and I got together in our office and sat down, had the paper all ready to go for whatever he had to say. He called on the money and laid out a great strategy, a lot of different treatment options and ideas.
Yeah.
Some things I'd never even dreamed of to help combat this situation.
Mm-hmm.
We wrote them all down, took them all seriously, and we just kind of started from there. But that was in the beginning of my Facebook posts of my weekly journey. And I think that once you started watching those and seeing who I was really, it may have helped you see that I'm doing this for real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I kind of hit you hard with just, this is what you need to do. And the reason why I did it is because your diagnosis was serious.
Right.
It wasn't for the faint of heart. It was very intense. It was very serious. It had run its history in your family. And so, it was something that he needed to get a handle on, and he needed to get a handle on it very quickly.
Right.
And so I said, I think one of the first things I said was, here's the end goal. The end goal is if you do everything nutritionally and you do everything natural and you do everything that you can do in the natural world to get your body well, and you also do everything in the medical world that you can do to get your body well, at the end of the day, here's what I want to happen. I want the doctors to be saying, what we did worked. And I want the nutrition people to be saying, what we did worked. And I want and I don't remember me saying this, I said, I want everybody to think what they did worked, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right. That's 100% true.
Absolutely doesn't matter who's right, who won. and why it worked. All that matters is that everybody's taking credit and you're well.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I said. I
Yeah.
said, when
Yeah.
that happens, I said, we've hit the bullseye, and that's what needs to happen.
That's exactly true. That was a goosebump moment, because
Yeah.
I was surprised. I didn't know for sure how you would feel about the medical side. When I mentioned the stem cell transplant part of it, you kind of lit up a little bit.
Yeah.
But other than that, you knew there was, with this particular issue, there really wasn't a lot of other options.
Yeah.
Except how to combine both of them,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
And so I just was, I was.
Yeah.
And
And
I
I
want to
speak on that too.
Okay.
You say your point, and then I
Well,
want
I
to
just
say
want
something.
I just want to say, the thought process is crazy in today's world, because everybody thinks that it has to be black or white.
Okay, yes.
It has to
Same
be
thing.
this
Correct.
or that, and it doesn't.
Right.
And when you're in the fight of your life, David was in the fight of his life, and Christy was too. They both were, because they're a couple.
Yeah.
And so the whole family is in a fight for their life. And you don't need to choose, you got to be just vegetarian. You have to be just you fast yourself to become until you're wasted away.
Right.
Or you can only do chemotherapy and radiation, and you can't touch any supplements because they're going to counteract this and counteract that. Both of those are wrong. They're both too lopsided.
Yeah.
They're absolutely wrong. The smart individual uses the best of every single thing that is available to them,
Yeah.
does their research, and tries every single thing that they can to win the fight, to win the battle.
Yeah.
And only then are they able to win the battle. If they can put the pieces of the puzzle together, the mental aspect, the spiritual aspect, the diet aspect, the supplement aspect, the chemo aspect, the radiation, whatever it is that they want to do to create their formula for living, for life, for success, for healing, then they're going to win.
Right.
But when you get fearful and say, well, I'm only going to fast, or I'm only going to do supplements, or I'm only going to do nutrition, or I'm only going to do chemotherapy, or I'm only going to do radiation, forget it.
Yeah.
You're going to lose.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
And I'm
good.
really glad that you're speaking to that, because that's actually the exact same point I was going to make. I think that there's a lot of people, I mean, I know people personally right now, or, people that we know together that are facing a very similar diagnosis. And there is so much overwhelm, fear, pressure initially, one, to kind of accept this new reality that you've been given, which I can only imagine. And then number two, to figure out what's my treatment route. And it is a lot of the times one or the other.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're saying is so smart. Like, if I was ever in that situation, I would do exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Doing the best of all of it, not feeling like it's got to be just one way.
Right.
Well, if you just think about it, he goes to get scans. He could have never gotten diagnosed and known that he was in a battle if he didn't go and get the test.
Right.
Right.
In the medical world.
In the medical world.
I mean,
Yeah, that was a major part of it.
So
Yeah.
you have to understand, like, if I want to know about my heart, I'm not going to go to a nutritionist and say, tell me. I can say, I go to a nutritionist and say, tell me how to feed my heart, how to clean my heart, how to get it cleaned out. But you can't go to a nutritionist and say, tell me what condition my heart is in, or what's the blockage in my heart.
Yeah.
You have to use the technology.
Yeah.
And the technology today is amazing. Now, is it too lopsided? Are people doing too many drugs, too much medication?
Right.
Are they damaging their body? Absolutely yes. There's no question about it. But you can use these tests, and you can use this technology that exists today to further your goal.
Yeah.
And your goal is really simple. It's to get well. That's
Yeah.
it.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever, by any means possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Good. I have no value if I'm not well, in respects to the recovery of all of this and all of this change that has been in our lives. So it's beautiful. It came to me early. You got to use all three of these, the philosophy of God, nutrition, and treatment. The treatment was a big player.
So can you speak to, I know some of these treatments had to be really grueling and really difficult.
Yeah.
So can you describe some of that just a little bit?
In the beginning of trying to figure out where this cancer was within my body outside the lymph nodes, a protocol would be to do a bone marrow biopsy and a spinal tap. Both of those are good tests. I mean, we need to know what's going on. And
Painful.
so uniquely, how they do a bone marrow biopsy has changed over the years, but it is a fairly aggressive inject. Well, it's in this experience when I went in for this treatment. I was in the old part of an old hospital, if you can imagine, dark and damp, and it felt like a dungeon kind of. And I was on a hospital bed. She had an assistant with her. She was a very assertive, strong nurse that came in to do this procedure. And as I was put on my side, they access it from your pelvic bone, lower part of your pelvis. It's where most of the blood or the bone marrow flows for best access. So she's trying to extract a few vials of my bone marrow to see what's up. And so this technique has not changed a lot over the years. This is a 1/4 of an inch size straw, basically, with an auger tip. And they make an incision, go in, tap you on the bone until you feel really dull. And she literally hand twists that in to create a fissure to get the fluid out. I wasn't giving her. My bones were way too strong, apparently. So the next step, she leans over with her beautiful bedside demeanor and hits the trigger on the drill.
Oh
zing,
my
zing.
gosh!
And she said, "You're probably going to feel this one."
Yeah.
Because I can't get through it. And her assistant is just looking me right in the eye the whole time I'm laying on my side, and he's trying to catch my expression of what I'm going through. Yeah. No anesthesia. They didn't offer anything to take my mind off of it. Yeah. Which was interesting because quickly the following story they did. But so she hit that drill and it popped through there, and she said, "We struck gold," and my leg shot off the end of that table. That nerve was hit, and she was kind of compressing that nerve to help relieve some of that pain, which I appreciated. Yeah, because it hurt. Well, and then she pulled. Of course, I couldn't see anything. It was on my backside, and so she pulled out 4 vials of bone marrow, and I had mantle cell I had cancer in my bone marrow, which. That was a part of a good part of my knowledge of how far along we were. Because when it's flowing in my bones, we're in trouble. Yep. My prostate was changing. I couldn't urinate very well. All that was because of the swelling of the lymph nodes surrounding those organs, which is how this problem transfers. Yeah. And so
it spreads everywhere.
It spreads fast. And so we were getting there. So then I think within 2 days, I had a port put in. That was painful. Fentanyl was the drug of choice that they used to kind of keep you awake but keep you fuzzy. Did that. But all of that was so necessary to make it convenient. I didn't want to get stuck every time I had something going on. And then when we went back for the remission time, when I was told they were in full remission, things were looking good, but we got to take another bone marrow test.
Did you have the same nurse?
I went right back to this Amazon lady. I call her that. No, she really wasn't. Christy, we joke about it. She was really, really good at what she did, but it was just her tools in that time. But I was in Barnes Jewish for the second one. There were a couple of young gals, very, very proficient at what they did. She cracked right through. It didn't, and they offered some medication to help me kind of deal with the pain that time. Sure. It's a graphic experience, but I mean, it had to be done. Spinal tap proved nothing. I had no bone. I had no cancer in my spinal fluid, which was a positive thing. I learned so much. I really did. But that was pretty interesting procedure.
For sure. No pain, no gain, right?
I guess not.
Yeah, it puts it in a whole new perspective.
Yeah. They're not something you want to do every day. I did have a friend who went through leukemia, and he had, I think, 12 bone marrow biopsies over a period of time. Yeah. Ugh, graphic. No. And, I mean, if you look into how they used to do them, I'm better off. Sure. It was pretty graphic.
Yeah, but there it just speaks to, some of these things in the medical world are necessary. Yeah. But it gives you the knowledge, the information that you need to go forward.
You need the knowledge of the test, and you can't get there's just some ways you got to get there.
Exactly.
And one of the procedures of taking the lymph nodes out, that cancer is so prevalent now. I guess that's a way to say it. For so many people, when I went to the specialist right off the bat, the young gal that was physically feeling my neck, Christy was sitting to my left, and she says, and we're all nervous. This is early. This is my first trip to a specialist. Yeah. And she felt around my neck. She goes, "Oh, we've got some kind of lymphoma here," very flippantly, as if it was an everyday thing for her. And it was.
Hey, you've got strep throat.
Exactly. Yeah. You got pink eye. It was so simple to her to say that. I looked at Christy for a second, and we're of the time where those words were really bad.
Oh, yeah.
But for her, she knew the treatments.
Daily occurrence.
Yep.
Yeah, she knew that there was a lot of this going on. So it's funny, I never even thought of Dad at that time. I just thought, well, okay, maybe there's something there.
Yeah.
It's a Hodgkin's, which is medically a lot more treatable and naturally a lot more treatable. A lot of those are.
Right.
I don't know all of them, but
Yeah.
that was the word. But it was not that.
Yep.
I got to take the full ride.
Yeah, the full ride. So that's we should do a podcast on why cancer is becoming so prevalent, because I think that what his statement is I think it's very, very relevant for today.
Yeah.
Because there's some very clear indicators as to why that is, and I think it's worthy of a full podcast.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I've heard you say it before, and I mean, I agree. It's like when you were younger, when I was younger, you didn't really
know anybody.
I mean,
Exactly.
I remember
nobody.
when my uncle got cancer when I was a young kid, 11, 12, and he was really the first person that I had ever heard of having cancer. And it was like very rare. It was like, oh my gosh, this just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And now it's rare if you don't know someone that doesn't have cancer, So it's absolutely a topic that needs to be talked about.
There's so many. I forget the exact number of lymphoma types, somewhere in the 300 mark of all the variables.
Yeah.
I was in the top 7% of the rare ones for mantle cell. It's not common, but it's becoming more common. And the people, they never ask. As I asked them, is this hereditary or is this something that, how do I get it? What did I do to get this?
Right.
Did I drink too many drinks? Did I, there's a period of time I had cigars. I enjoyed them for playing golf and all that.
Yeah.
Was that part of it? She said, absolutely not. We don't have, those aren't healthy things, but nothing leads to that. It's a radical gene that something could trigger it. And when it does, it takes off.
Yeah.
It's in the lymphatic system.
Yeah.
And so if you keep it clean, I've learned a lot about, and no one would ever imagine, and maybe they can imagine on this podcast, me bouncing on a trampoline. How do you move this stuff? Your thighs, this action, these things that are so simple.
Yeah.
Never even thought about it before.
What made you, because I do remember you were very just open about everything that you were going through, and you would do Facebook Lives and you would kind of share. And what made you, because some people, I think they would be like, I don't want to do that. I want to keep, I'm private, and everybody's different. But what made you feel like, what, I'm just going to share this and be open about my struggle right now?
It came after, in the beginning of the diagnosis. And I don't know when we can go through that part of it, but I would like to kind of set that up a little bit.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
what I was feeling happened in November of 2020. And these were like weird little symptoms of lymph nodes that were popping up in my body that would during a sickness in my life previous, and I didn't really give them a lot of credit. And as I had a really hard BB right here. It felt like a BB, but it was a lymph node swollen. The weirdest place to have one. I'd never had one. I'd been sick and had some swelling back here.
Right.
See, this is important, David, because this is what people need. This story people need to hear and understand, because this is educational. This informs people about their body. And you unfortunately, you learned the hard way about your body.
And it's also partly answering her question in respects to why I wanted to make a live of it.
Yeah.
And make it a process, not just at the end, I'm good.
Yeah.
Because, and I didn't talk about everything, but this part of the diagnosis of myself, something's wrong. Now, we got to also talk about my dad who had the same exact cancer and passed. There was the technology was not there.
Yeah.
He died in 22 months.
And the nutrition wasn't there.
A lot of reasons for him were not there.
Yes.
But it was so long ago that I never dreamed it would come to me, because I had been told it was not hereditary.
Yeah.
It's a more maybe a geographical thing. We were exposed to something. Dad and I are the only two ever to have mantle cell lymphoma as a father-son team. In all the books. That's what they told me at Barnes at the hospital. So when I started feeling these...
And didn't you say, you were like, hey, where's my prize?
Yeah, well, actually, I asked them, do I get any kind of props for being on the cover of Health Magazine or something? Medical journal. I was trying to get something out of it, but they didn't go for that. But when I started feeling these lymph nodes, there's one key one that Dad told me about that I remembered all those years before, that he had a swollen lymph node in his groin the size of a golf ball. They took a biopsy of that.
Wow.
So when I had mine going on, I thought I was sick. something. I didn't know if I was trying to. And then I remembered that, and at Christmas time they would not go away. So from Thanksgiving to Christmas, it continued to kind of grow in certain areas. I didn't feel sick.
Yeah.
Maybe a little loss of energy, but it's Christmas.
Yeah.
And then I checked my groin lymph nodes, and they were the size of almonds, and they were all lit up on both sides of my groin. Once and then it was like, okay, this is Christmas time. I'm going to have to get through the Christmas season,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to make an appointment with my doc. That was the moving point.
Yeah.
And when I went into the general practitioner, he took a test, and the only way I could have known, he came into me and asked me, "We've got to figure out what's going on with your liver." I had no idea. I just knew. And then I told him, I had these swollen lymph nodes. That might be part of it. And he goes, "Why did you not tell me?" He kind of gave me the runaround. But it was important that at that moment, his recognition of my liver number, which that number specifically was 40 or less. That was the number that was the chart for the enzyme number. I was 188 that day. He didn't like that.
Yeah.
So he sent me to a specialist. That's where the whole story began. Once I went to the specialist, and he went through all the testing, and I'm streamlining quite a bit here, but going through all the CTs, I had a big cut. They took 3 biopsy lymph nodes out, waiting for that diagnosis. And I'm going to get to fully answer your question.
No, you're fine. Take your time.
Because, and this is always a tough moment in this story, because on our phones, we have an app that gives us the information sometimes before the doctors get it. And they told me that. They say, you're going to get this by law, we have to give it to you as soon as we have it charted.
Yeah.
Normally that's okay for a scheduled appointment or whatever. I'm laying in bed at 7:30 after these biopsies have been done and all this testing. I had a reaction to a couple tests, crazy time. The diagnosis came back on my phone, mantle cell lymphoma. I never dreamt it was that. I knew it was a lymph node problem of some point.
And you knew what it was from your father.
Exactly. I knew what mantle cell was because of my father.
Yeah.
And I had a tailspin that I've never experienced in my life.
Yeah.
It was the hardest moment for 10 minutes. It was really difficult because all I thought of was Christy.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave her yet.
Right.
Dad died in 22 months. There's no cure for this thing. I mean, it all was negative. It was the devil jumping on a bandwagon. I mean, and it was hard.
Yeah.
So I got up. I went in the kitchen. She came in. She has access to the same account. And I asked her to take a look at the diagnosis. We were both waiting for it. Yeah. And it was a tough time.
Sure.
Because I didn't want to leave her.
Yeah.
I wasn't afraid of dying. I'd seen people pass a lot. That wasn't it. It was just we were 52 years old and this isn't ready.
Yeah. Not done yet.
And all I knew was the negative of what mantle cell meant. Could have been another Hodgkin's lymphoma that was far more treatable, even without chemo.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was the dirtiest, nastiest one I could have been offered. And I was down. I didn't know what to think. So about an hour after that, I got a phone call. You have an appointment the next day at 2:00 with your oncology doctor. And that didn't even sound right that I would have an oncology doctor.
Yeah.
So the turning point was when I went into him and I walked in the door, tall, thin man. We all had masks on at that time, the mandate of that time. This is, early in 2021. And he looked at me and he said, Mr. Hines, tell me about your condition. What do you know? And I said, well, I killed my dad. I was negative. I felt terrible. Christy and I were in the same room. I said, killed my father. No cure. Here's what my research was, a Google search told me.
WebMD.
Yeah, Google, Dr. Google's not a good thing.
Yeah.
And it was the same diagnosis of time frame. So I thought I was checking out.
Yeah.
And he stopped me and he said, the landscape has changed. We can treat this today. And Christy was in full-blown emotion. I was fighting full-blown emotion to try to hear what next he had to say.
Yeah.
Because something in me changed.
Yeah.
At that second in my life.
Yeah.
I was a rhinoceros in a glass house. I didn't care what he told me. I'm doing it. Not so that I could just win the fight for my own life, but so that if I go through this, I know my personality enough to say, I'm going to expose people to this. I'm going to talk about this. So that's what the Facebook Live idea came from.
Yeah.
Was like, how do I get there? I wasn't a Facebook guy, but I like to talk and tell stories and be a part of it.
Sure.
And so I immediately jumped right in, and that was how it happened on a Wednesday, Thursday. The emotions were from the top to the bottom, and then back above anything I've ever experienced of hope and direction from a medical doctor. But I knew about Dr. Lindsey in the back of my mind. Just whatever you tell me is fine, but I'm going to throw something else at this thing, you know. And so he told me, they gave me a regimen of what people had had success with, and I asked for the arrogance, I guess you could say, at the moment was like, I'd like a second opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not satisfied with your one answer, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair. You know, this is pretty graphic. And he said, okay, no problem. So he pulled his phone out, looked up a world-renowned a doctor that has only studied mantle cells from its inception. The beginning of it was recognized as a cancer, 97 or 96, I think. She'd have been a pathfinder for a lot of treatments, and she was at Barnes Jewish in St. Louis, which was a world-renowned hospital for lots of tests and treatments and different things people go through, trials.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. He goes, he said, let me see if she'll respond. She was on the button, which was a complete blessing because they aren't always on the button.
Yeah.
Sure.
And she responded immediately to him. So I thought, wow, there's something happening because
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to get a second option this quick.
Yeah.
And so the following Wednesday, I believe it was, we drove up to see her. She laid out a different plan, far less caustic in the chemical side of it. And at that was the time that I reached out to Dr. Lindsey. When I got diagnosed that night, Friday night, the next night, I'm like, I'm just going to message him and see what he says.
Yeah.
And so, but to answer that, you know, the question was, I think, what made me want to do that was just something there's a chance here. People out there who have had this need to know things have changed.
Yeah. Well, and you know, you said this word, but you said something shifted inside of me
100%.
when they said the landscape had
changed.
And then like a minute later, you said the word hope, and that, in my opinion, is the shift that happened with you. And I think, you know, that's something that anybody that's dealing with a health issue or a relationship issue or a career, anything difficult in life, as long as you can have that element of hope in there somewhere, you can find something to be hopeful about. I believe that can literally change your perspective entirely. And I'd like you to talk about that, you know, your mindset a little bit, because I think, in my opinion, you know, I always talk about mental.
Right.
I think your mental, and you would agree, I know you would, the mental played such a crucial role in like your success, because you have consistently, I'm sure you had your moments, but you have consistently stayed positive and hope focused.
People who know me in life know that I'm generally a pretty positive person.
Yeah.
You know, that's just who I've always tried to be. There's obviously sarcasm and negative in everyone's, but if someone's down and there's an issue with them, I'm not going to bring more negative to that situation. And then so the mental side of how I looked at this it morphed. I mean, it kind of changed. In the beginning, it was just it was a cheerleader mentality for myself, and to be a good example for Christy, because she was going to walk and watch her husband go through something.
Yeah.
I apologized that day before we knew there was a chance. I apologized 1,000 times. Sorry to put you through this. This is going to be crucial for you. I mean, we've been together since 1985. We met in high school in drama class. You know, so we've been around a lot, seen a lot in life, had a fantastic family. And so I didn't, all those things were like, it's still there, it's great, but the future's uncertain here.
Right.
Yeah.
The mental strength came from choosing to see things as they come at me, as how I look like I handle them. I mean, kind of like, who's going to perceive me as crumbling or falsely arrogant or truly invested in this thing to figure out how I can manage this through. So I needed some solid people around me, even if I didn't know who they were yet. And from what I could perceive of his history and knowledge, he was the best I could think of on the nutrition side to combat what they were going to be putting in my body.
Yeah.
And it worked flawlessly.
Yeah.
The first 3 months, I felt better than ever. And I had 3 months of chemo in Springfield and the last 3 months in Barnes. But I didn't want to get too far ahead, but that was kind of the mental side of the strength of it came from, I didn't really have any other option. There was no way I was going to grovel and be negative.
Yeah.
It would just,
yeah.
I can't be that influence on the people that are watching me right now. This is a test.
Absolutely.
You think about too, you assembled your team, and what's really interesting is that he could. There's plenty of nutritionists. There's thousands, tens of thousands of them, but how many of them specialize in detoxification,
Right.
especially of the liver? So you for whatever reason, found a nutritionist that specializes in purification, for 38 years now, specializes in detoxification of the lymphatic system, detoxification of the liver, of the bowels, of the 7 channels of elimination. And then, so what more perfect formula could you have created or stumbled upon for that specific situation? It's actually interesting to think about.
Yeah.
It very much is, because
Right.
you watching you. I remember at one point the phrase came to me, "This man makes me want to clean my spleen."
Yeah. Right.
And I thought, and so that
You're not
was
the first person to say that.
The
Yeah.
nutritionals, So the cleansing was a huge portion of how do I get this out of here.
Yeah.
You know.
A lot of people might wonder, like, where you exactly start, like, because you guys went back and forth on, he would send you a question, or you got, a message, and then you would give him some suggestions. And I think you pulled up the very first
Yeah, he gave me a list.
message that you had sent him on kind of like where to start. So did you want to share a little bit of that?
Well, I mean, we spoke for a bit, and I just kind of wanted to get a sense of where he was. I wanted to understand, how much of the drugs are you going to put in your body? I wanted to understand, are you a meat and potatoes guy, which I thought he was, and he was,
Yeah.
Clearly meat. So I'm dealing with a meat and potatoes guy, who is, going to be putting these harsh chemicals in his body, who doesn't eat sprouts and green, dark leafy green vegetable juices, So it was difficult. I had to go, okay, we got to take baby steps. I'll read it to you.
Yeah.
But it's filled with gold. This is filled with golden nuggets, and I think you may have I dictated it, and you probably typed.
Oh, did I? Maybe.
I think you typed it out. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
I don't remember.
So I just went right into it. I just said, David, I'm going to be sending you several tranches of information, and I'll break them up into supplementation, diet, and do's and don'ts. Below is a list of supplements that I suggest that you take a strong look at, and if you agree to take them, then take them on a daily basis. Listing the supplements here, there's 17 of them. Some of them are oil, like olive oil or flaxseed oil, but there's 17 of them. None of them were all-in nutritionals, not one. We didn't even have all-in nutritional
exist at the
supplements. This
time.
is just
Right.
stuff that I had to piece together for
Right.
him. And then at the end I said, so that's a lot of supplements to get used to. So take your time and spend the next week or two getting used to separating everything out and knowing what to take at night and knowing what to take in the morning and knowing what to take throughout the day. Practice will make perfect here, and it will become easy and seamless after you practice this. So now I've got all these nutrients flooding his body. So check that box. So then I said to him, I want to go over some diet. Okay, talking to a meat and potatoes guy here, not a lot, because I don't want to overwhelm you. So one of the worst things that either one of us, the medical doctor or the nutritionist, can do is freak him out, overwhelm him, and cause stress. So I said right up front, I'm going to go over a little diet, but I don't want to overwhelm you.
Right.
I expect that you'll be a little overwhelmed with the supplements. So in regards to diet, what I suggest right now is to learn, is to read up on macrobiotic diets, okay? Fight cancer. And then also read up on vegetarian diets. Boom, they fight cancer.
Yeah.
Then I want you to read up on vegan diets. Boom, they fight cancer. And then also read up on the Mediterranean diet. Boom, fights cancer.
Yeah.
So I've got him now learning, not overwhelming, not telling him you got to juice a gallon every morning,
Right,
anything
right.
like that. He's got good medical care. He's got really good supplement battle plan, and now I'm gonna educate him. So he's gonna learn that the meat and potatoes and the sugar is the worst thing that he can put in his body.
Yeah.
Once you've done some decent reading on these diets, you'll know what to begin to incorporate into your eating plan. Where we're headed with all this is basically a lot less meat and potatoes and a lot more colorful vegetables and some fruits with lots of nuts and seeds and legumes and more vegetarian-style food. Now, I can back that up with clinical after clinical after clinical after clinical. So now I've got him headed in the right direction with no overwhelm.
And also common sense just tells you this is right.
Absolutely. Yeah,
like I'm just listening. I'm like, I don't even have to research that. I know this is right.
It wasn't like he was trying to say, because, people could think, well, I've got to eat like him to be able to pull this off.
Yeah.
It got none of that.
Nope.
I got a nice blending. It was a great, smooth way to introduce something different.
But I knew that I had to get you to understand it, not me. I understood it.
Absolutely.
Okay, but it wasn't about me. It was about you understanding it.
Yeah.
And he does.
Yeah.
So I said, don't try to do all this in one day or in 1 week because it will just stress you out. Again, trying not to stress him out. Start slowly. So in the morning, a few times a week, start having an acai bowl. This is a fantastic way to get antioxidants in your body and helps fight cancer. Start trading out some of your current dinners, meat and potatoes, with wild-caught salmon with some steamed vegetables and a small salad with lemon and oil and vinegar dressing. Okay, just little small changes, just a couple of them a night.
Yeah.
If I can get you to substitute 6 to 8 heavy meals a week with 6 to 8 vegetarian meals, protein and vegetable meals, and acai bowl type meals, this will be a great start. And all of these foods I'm giving you are very tasty. I'm trying to get him to know you're not going to be living on bird food.
Right. Bland.
So you won't feel like you're being deprived.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I ended it by saying, I don't know if you have a juice shop close to where you live, but if you do, it would be great if you could get them to make you a dark, leafy green, not sugary, vegetable juice with beets, liver, lots of lemon juice, liver. This should taste pretty good, even though it has all the nasty green vegetables in it because the beet and the lemon.
Yep.
This is great for purification of your blood. I know what he's getting ready to go through. I already know his liver enzyme numbers are high. It's great purification for the blood, liver, gallbladder, and basically most of your entire digestive system. And then I said, also, I'd like to have you start to consider maybe your first round of, well, I won't get into that, which...
It's a little controversial.
It's a little controversial, so I'll leave that out, but it's...
Joe Tippins.
Joe Tippins' work, yep. So I recommended that, and I said, if you feel like this is something that you want to try, I said, your call.
Yeah.
If you do it, perhaps you can start it in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Again, trying to not overwhelm it.
Yeah.
And then I said to him, this is my last sentence, this is all a very good start for now.
Yeah.
Let me know your thoughts about all this, and if you have any questions, which I'm sure you will, enjoy, have fun, and dig, dig, dig.
Yeah.
That
you know what
means
I
learn.
love the most about as I listen to that, it's not restrictive. This is not restrictive language.
Right.
The way he coached you was trade out, substitute. You get to,
Start slow.
Because
Right.
anytime our mind hears stop, none of this, don't do this, we immediately internally want to resist it. And when I hear something like that, it's kind of like you get to give your body this.
Yeah.
Your body's in a
Right.
fight.
Completely.
Now you get to give it what it needs so it can fight hard.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really good perspective. This is not restrictive. This is something we get to do.
Right. I was forced to take the other stuff.
Yeah.
But this was something I could play with. The juice shop, we had one, but we did a lot of home.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
I'm in the taste and all that part of it. Somewhere the phrase "bitter is better" came across my mind, and I just adopted that idea personally. Yeah.
And notice I didn't say anything about sugar.
Yeah.
Now, you've known me for both of you, have known me for 10 to 15 years.
Right.
When I talk about cancer, what's the one thing I always talk about?
Sugar.
Right.
Is sugar.
Sugar feeds
So I
cancer.
didn't want to, because sugar feeds it. So I didn't want to overwhelm him.
Yeah.
But the next time we spoke, what did I do? I sent him the information on the scanning. And what do they use to find and detect cancer?
Sugar solution.
Is glucose. So I said, I want you to Google. I Googled it. I got 134 million hits. And all I Googled was, can I detect cancer by using glucose?
Yeah.
And look what happens. A small amount of radioactive glucose, sugar, is injected into your vein. The PET scanner rotates around the body and makes a picture of where glucose is being used in the brain.
Right.
What does that tell you? That's where the cancer
yeah,
is.
cancer goes toward sugar.
Then I
Yeah.
said to David, you want to be aware because your body uses blood sugar glucose for energy, but cancer cells use 200 times more.
Soaks it.
200 times more.
Yeah.
So just by evaluating, hey, how do they detect cancer? Would they use glucose? Because the cancer rushes. You can see it. It lights up.
Yeah.
In the scan, it literally lights up and rushes to the cancer. That's how they can determine, there's a problem there. There's cancer cells there.
Right.
So I just used that technology to say,
Yeah,
why would you
right.
want to feed the cancer?
Yeah.
Then I say, set the sugar aside, get it out of your diet.
Yeah.
Now what do we have him on? Supplements, a great diet, reading 4 books, and now he's stopping sugar. That's it.
It was good.
Next thing I do is start fasting him. Katie, bar the door. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I had a.
You're going to win. He's going to win.
If he does what I tell him, he's going to win, and that's what we did. I did have a relapse. I had a moment, and that was due to the Duncan Hines cake mix of blueberries, blueberry muffin mix. I went in for some olive oil at a grocery store, and there that package was screaming at me.
But it was healthy, right? Because
It
it was
was-
at a health food
And
store.
and that was the only sugar I ingested in that first 4 or 5 months, and it wasn't what I needed.
Yeah.
It did not satisfy. It was like I was almost going against the grain.
Yeah.
And so
You were feeding the cancer
we
cells.
we were changing the mind and the body at the same time. It took some time, but I did it.
Yeah.
I took you very seriously.
Yeah.
I took them very seriously. Some of the pharmacy in the hospitals, they would request any supplement list you may have for the counteraction thing, and they want to make sure they win, I guess. And so that kind of made me think twice about a few things, just to say, what are we getting into here? I really don't want to have a.
Yeah.
So we had to tread that water, and I
Yeah.
stayed true to what was natural as much as possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
When I learned how quickly the chemotherapy, I had 31 rounds of chemo and a stem cell transplant. That's a lot on a body. So when I learned how quickly the effectiveness of the chemo was, how long it was in my system, because I was thinking, this stuff's floating around in there. Doesn't it work for,
Yeah.
it's only 10 minutes of effective yield or whatever, however they say
Didn't
that.
get it out.
I started drinking water.
Yeah.
And I drank 1.5 gallons of water a day for almost the whole year.
Wow.
And when I first went in the hospital, out of all those nurses, and they have to measure your intake and output. So I had a urinal, and I started off with 1, and this was in the very beginning. And and probably the second treatment, I realized, I asked them, Christy and I asked them, what is this doing? How long does it stay? And when they told me it was 10 minutes, my urinals went from 1 to 4.
Yeah.
I was loading those suckers. I was going for it. It was all day, every day.
Flush it.
Yeah.
Flush it
Yeah.
constantly. And now, and one nurse was like, you're like a puppy, what's the deal here?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm not going to do what everyone does. I'm going to get this out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that was it's so funny. It's a water treatment, but I mean, it was so effective. And then I started adding organic lemon, and we tried to keep it going because it was just so rotten.
Now you're affecting the liver.
Yeah.
As soon as you add the lemon, the water's flushing the liver,
Right.
clearly. But soon as you add the lemon, you increase the effect on the liver by 500, 600%.
We've gone further than that. I mean, now
No, I know.
Now it's
I know.
a daily regimen of
Yeah.
organic cayenne, lemon, It's just a whole different lifestyle
Yeah.
in regards to that. But
Yeah.
they didn't know it. I wanted to get through it the best I could and come out the other side because, for the general person, they're going to hear that chemotherapy destroys your liver and your kidneys or really puts them havoc to them. And it's true because I see the people sitting with this chemo and a little sip of soda in their room.
Yeah.
That's all they're doing.
But they're eating the pudding and they're having the
Yeah.
fast food when they get out of there.
Yeah.
And they're going for the saturated fat. They're clogging up their bodies. They're basically taking their body, they're turning it into a pool of stagnation. And you weren't doing that. You were a river that was flushing. You were flowing like it just rained, and you were cleaning. Everything was cleaning through your lymphatic system and through your bloodstream and through your kidneys and through your liver. It was getting flushed on an hourly basis.
Yeah.
That's a big
100%.
difference.
A big difference.
I was sitting here thinking, and a lot of the times when people have these kinds of diagnosis, they want comfort food, or family and friends want to show support, so they bring
It's the
over
wrong step.
comfort
yeah,
food
right.
and casseroles and cookies and things like that. You don't need comfort food in a time like this. You need strategic food, and you need food that aligns with everything that he just said. And it's
Show
not
your love a different way.
Yeah, it's not about being perfect, but you do need to be thoughtful and strategic.
Absolutely.
And
part in line with that was something that came to me very early on, and it was when you mentioned people and what they want to do to comfort you. And I had a phrase that I said every single day, and I know I have offended some people with this phrase.
Yeah.
Guard your mind. You have to guard what people want to tell you.
Yeah.
Because they're just trying to help, but I don't need to hear about, not that it's all about me, but at this moment in my life, the story about your uncle who died of cancer is not going to help me out.
No.
It may make us, it may make you feel like we're
about you.
Connecting. We're not,
right. It is.
It
But
is because what comes into your mind
Yeah.
and what you assimilate mentally is about you.
It is.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I think that one of the reasons, if I had to, and Molly, you can speak to this better than I can, but if I had to break down the 5 reasons why you are here today, in remission, cancer-free, I would say that the diet, the supplementation, the doctor's work, brilliant work, but I would have to say your mindset would have to make the top 5.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
I brought something. When were you diagnosed?
it would have been, I think, late March of 2021.
Late March. So give me a date. March 28th, March 29th.
We actually figured this out, and I do have it. Let me just look back on my
Okay,
notes because we went through this. I think we went through. I think it would have been. It was the Wednesday before Easter of 2021, so that would have been March 31st. I think it was
March
that year.
31st. This is your post on Facebook on April 8th of 2021 at 2:21 p.m. 2021 at 2:21 p.m. It says, "Hi everyone!" exclamation. "I'm so blown away by the positive response by so many from different parts of my life." Look what you say. "I'm truly a blessed man." Okay, so there's number 1.
Yeah.
"I've decided to do a Friday evening weekly recap on how each week goes during this process of, ready, getting through this phase of my life." So there's the second statement right there. You're claiming that you're going to get through this phase in your life. You're not going to become a statistic or a victim. Then you say, "I'm shooting for 5:30 every Friday. Hope you can join me and see how God's going to walk me and the family through, ... So there's another claim that you are going to win. And then you end it by saying, "Thank you all for being there for us. Truly a blessed man." Again, he starts with, "I'm truly a blessed man." He ends with, "I'm truly a blessed man." And this was 8 days after you were diagnosed with a fatal
Yep.
disease, a very harsh cancer. So
I sent that to you because you hadn't had a reference to me yet as far as what I even look like.
yeah.
So I wanted you to see us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's pretty powerful. I remember that day. I don't remember it the way you picked it apart.
8 days.
Yeah.
8 days.
How was it?
I'm a blessed man. I'm a blessed man. God's going to walk me through this, and
Yeah.
I'm a blessed man.
Yeah. Well,
Now,
I wrote down.
if that doesn't say what your
Yeah.
mindset was, then I don't know what will.
I wrote down 3 words as you were reading that: gratitude, expectation and confidence. How often do I talk about those three words?
Daily.
Yeah, right.
You know,
This morning with
and
your
we know
boys.
that gratitude changes our brain chemistry 100%. MRIs show this, you know, neurological research shows this. Expectation, I mean, scripturally speaking, we know that God wants us to speak with expectation and declare. And confidence, I mean, when you have confidence, it changes your perspective on everything. And a lot of people will say, well, it's presumptuous of me to be confident and, you know, boastful. And I say that's a bunch of hogwash, in my opinion.
What?
You have to convince yourself in those moments. You have to lay it out there and have that expectation that you are going to come out on the other side of this, you know? And I think that that's key.
I had a friend tell me once during this process, do you feel like, why do you always talking like you've got it so under control and everything's going so well? And I said, well, would you prefer me to down myself?
Yeah.
And tell you how bad I am and how miserable
Would
everything
that make
is?
you feel better?
Would that be what you want?
Yeah.
And it was like, well, he realized that I'm just not going there. And I don't really know why I did that other than the touch of the Lord.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
don't
a
know
God thing.
another answer to be, I was positive, but man, we're not going anywhere. I've got to be an example to somebody.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't mean that you don't have your weak moments,
Absolutely.
because you did,
You
and
do.
you do, and
You're
everybody
human.
does.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
90% of the time,
yeah.
you were, I'm going to win this fight.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
That's it.
I'm simply going to win, and I'm going to win it by any means possible.
Well, and you said a little while ago, you said I was my own biggest cheerleader. Like I became a cheerleader for myself. And you kind of, in my opinion, in those moments, you have to be, because the mind often wants to say the negative, you know, that's.
Well, absolutely. You don't know what they're putting in you.
Yeah.
I don't have any knowledge of what I've got all these ports and lines and I don't know what they're doing. But but let me touch on this one phrase real quickly, because you had asked me a question when we spoke last week a little bit. There is a pathway that we can attach ourselves to with God's direction, your own personal empowerment for something, through total submission. When I knew there was a road to go down here, I submitted to the Lord and the plan. 100. I mean, there was no other way. The submission in someone's life, I think it's so many times that people just won't, and I still don't. There's areas that we hang on.
Sure.
But in this particular scenario, I submitted everything. I truly gave this over. I had no control over it.
Yeah.
We are all going to die someday. But I don't know that I'm ready yet. Let me make an impact if I possibly can, and I will submit to the bigger plan.
Yeah. I love that.
That was powerful
That's
for
very
me.
good.
And that's not easy to do.
It is not, especially in a very fearful time. So talk about the other person in this picture for a minute, because I know she's played a critical role.
She was the champion of the entire event. You know, honestly, Christy and I have been together since 1985 and spent a lot of life together. She was a RN, medical nurse. She spent a lot of years taking care of people that she worked in a federal medical center. So it was a federal nursing position, and she took care of a lot of guys that didn't necessarily deserve it. It gave her a lot of strength and stability deep down to go into work every day. And a lot of folks don't know that in 1998 I became a stay-at-home dad. I was a stay-at-home dad for almost 20 years. I supplemented my income to make sure I felt of quality in my kid's life, and she had a position that was stable and solid, and it's just the way we worked it. The time that I'm sure that the time that she spent putting in the grit that it took to do that job for our family gave her the ability to walk through this with me with such grace and such strength.
Yeah.
And she is the angel of my life. I mean, that's just no other way to say it.
Yeah. I love
She's
that.
always positive. She's always
Yeah.
got a smile on her face, and she's always there to give love, and she's just like an angel.
I don't give her all the reasons to be that way all of the time. But we made sure our life was smooth together. I made an effort early on when we stayed at home with the children that she would come home to no stress, and there wasn't going to be a lot have
Yeah.
I mean, we were going to have a lot of food, good things, good steak and potato. We were going to have something very come from that environment. And lo and behold, that time of her being there was what afforded the insurance.
Yep.
So she went to prison to save my life.
That's wow. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a very unique. I think that's a very unique background, you know. And it just says to me, like I'm sitting here thinking, like, you know, you never know what, like the things in your life, what they're preparing for you for earlier on. Like it's just a bunch of stepping stones, you know?
Absolutely.
It's really interesting. So
yeah,
I love that.
she had just lost her father a month before I was diagnosed. He went through quite a long sickness with some kidney issues and passed away. And then here we are with this. Yeah. And I didn't tell her a lot about the lymph nodes during Thanksgiving and Christmas. Yeah. That was something I was kind of thinking it'd just kind of disappear. So the family didn't know anything really about that. But when I went in, and then when I researched the ones that reminded me of my father's story, then I concluded her the situation at hand, and then we went for it. Yeah. But she is, you know, we'll be 30 years married next year.
Wow.
So
congratulations.
Yep, she's a rock.
She's a rock, 100%.
So I want to ask you about this because Lindsey has made this point a couple of times, and I think it's a really good thing to point out. So you are technically in remission now. Congratulations. A lot of people in your shoes would say, whew, that's over. Now I can go back to living the way.
Party.
Yeah, I'm like, I can eat the you know? Like a lot of people just be like, okay, I made it through that
Give me
one.
that tub of ice cream.
And you've done the opposite. That's actually what led you, I believe, to taking our course. Our 8-week course and learning about all the things that you've learned there. So speak to that a little bit about how this, terrible diagnosis has now created a different lifestyle for you, because it seems to me you're living a completely different life than you were.
Whenever he was helping me through, I realized that I needed to come out of this with a nutrition plan or company to walk with, to allow those products and that idea and those formulations to help my body recover from this traumatic event, which has a lot of side effects. And as we went through, all the nutritionals kind of developed. And I was there in the day one, and really felt that was the right place to go. Of all the options you can have with nutritional stuff that's thrown at you, I didn't need all those. I had to focus. I trusted this man. I trusted your leadership and your teamwork, the two of you, and I thought, well, let's just go forward. So when the retreat, when the course came available, I jumped in that for sure, and that taught me. Had I learned or knew or listened to everything he said during my treatment, which I did not. I listened to most of it, but there was things that I would miss because I had all these distractions of other competing people for my treatment.
Yeah. Right.
And so I just said at some point there were some chemicals. I'm like, okay, we're just going to get through it, and I'll get to the nutrition. That wasn't a long period of time, but whenever the course took place, I need to learn this really. Yeah. And I had known more about the depth of fasting. I would have fasted through chemo, and I'd known more. You had mentioned it; it was a strategy, but it wasn't on my radar as much as getting through. Yeah. So I had to revisit, what can we do to rebuild this whole thing? Yeah. When they put the stem cells back in you, which is an amazing and incredible experience to have, to watch your body's blood go out of you 6 times and filter off into a bag that's going to save you. If you don't have it, 13 rounds of chemo later, they're killing you. Yeah. They put it back in, they call it your second birthday. And it is. I lost all my inoculations from when I was young. They're gone. I'm stripped of all these things, chicken pox, whatever, polio. You're starting over. And I want to start over with a good plan. Yeah. So the retreat came into my life, or not the retreat, but the course came into my life at a very, very strategic time. And it's in my mind every day now. Yeah. It changed my life in a very positive way.
This is a new way of living for you.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. Every day today. Everything we do, really. Last night we went to dinner. I made a completely different choice. I mean, it was salmon and broccoli. It's just, you can choose. There was one time, I remember in the course you were talking about, well, how do I eat when I go to a restaurant with people and all that? You can order anything you want. You don't have to stay to to what they want. Right. You just order what you want, what's appropriate for you. And those are huge changes. Yeah.
What's the one thing, because I know there's going to be people that are listening to this podcast that are maybe going through a similar battle right now as David. Maybe it's not the exact same, but it's similar. What's the one thing that stands out to you as it relates to David that he did that you would say, if you take one thing from David's experience, do this and apply it to your own?
There's a person right now, and I think about her all the time. And when I think about it, it crushes me because she's losing the battle. And it's sad because she doesn't need to be losing the battle. And if I had to summarize why she's losing the battle in one word, it would be fear. And if I had to summarize the one word that he has not had very much of, he didn't allow it to come in. It creeped in, but he would push it out, and he would replace it with power, and with trust, and with fortitude, and with strength.
Submission.
Submission.
Yes, submission. It would be fear.
Yeah.
So it would be it's like a boxer. If you get in the ring and you're afraid to get hit, you're probably gonna get hit.
Yeah.
But if you stay focused on your techniques and what you've been taught in your training, then you're focusing on accomplishing your goal, which is to try to win that match.
Yeah.
None of us gets out of this one alive, but if you're going to fight cancer and you're going to have a battle, then you might as well fight well.
Yeah.
And he fought well, and he didn't bring fear into the fight.
Yeah.
He said, "Fear, you're going to sit on the sidelines, and I'm going to fight my fight, and I'm going to fight it without you."
Yeah.
And I think that's it.
Yeah.
And I've seen it, for 38 years. The people who win these types of fights usually don't allow fear to paralyze them. Because if it paralyzes you mentally, it's going to paralyze your cells, your tissues, and your organs.
Yeah.
And the people who win, they don't allow it.
So you picked a mental. See, him and I are always having this debate, what's more important, physical or mental. Yeah, you picked a mental thing. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I could pick the liver, I could pick the toxins, I could pick the poisons, I could pick the lymphatic system, I could pick the pollution of the cells and tissues. But at the end of the day, if you're already defeated, you're already defeated.
Right. I heard this, I was listening to something that makes me think of this a couple of days ago. It was a podcast or something, and this person who was speaking gave the example about fear. And they said, when we're little, when we're infants and we're learning to walk, we don't think about our fear of falling. We're just focused on walking. And they were saying, you don't remember, but when you were learning to walk, you would fall on an average, I think it was like 19 times an hour.
Yeah.
And if we at infants would have thought, oh my gosh, I'm afraid to fall, I'm afraid to fall, we would never would have walked.
Never walked.
And we don't have, at infants, we really don't have the ability to focus on our fear. We just focus on what we need or want.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really interesting analogy, and it speaks to what you're saying.
And it's the same thing with swimming.
Yeah.
When you jump in the water, if you have fear, you're going to sink.
Right.
Correct.
But if you don't and you use your instincts and you allow them to take over, then you're going to tread.
Yeah.
It's good.
One last question for you. What is, and this may be kind of a hard question, maybe hard to narrow down, but you could maybe say one or two, but what's the number one or two key takeaways that you have learned from this experience in your life?
You can't take it all for granted. It's easy.
Yeah.
We're lullabied a lot. The culture has really got a direction that swimming upstream is a good thing. And coming into a tragic situation or any kind of a really stress overload, like you said, the fear can take over it. But coming away from that by choosing to guard my mind, guard what comes in, be ready to offend people that want to help but don't know really what they're saying.
Yeah.
Coming away from that, I'm stronger about identifying that and recovering quicker from letting that take me down any kind of road. I had a friend tell me, I can't imagine how it would be for you being scared it's coming back. He doesn't know me. I thought he knew me. There is not even an instant in my mind that's not
who wants to live like that.
I don't live in the fear of that. But that when I go to I do have treatment still.
Sure.
When I go in for a management treatment, it's an artificial antibody. I'm going to continue the plan. Every 8 weeks I go in and I have a treatment for 3 hours, and then it takes about a week to recover from the joint pain and all the stuff that it does. But I have a wonderful strategic plan now. I fast for 25 hours the day before. so coming away from it, I have strategy, Molly.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have the same thinking. I don't know what to do. It just doesn't enter my mind. And I don't consult him constantly. In fact, we've not even, early on, I asked for his phone number because I thought, well, maybe there'd be something I would have and I wouldn't. And he said, you can have it, but don't ask me what kind of water to drink. You know, because everybody asks these questions of him. I'm not going to abuse this relationship. You know, I respect this guy. And so I've learned through the process of what, the best takeaway for me, if there's a couple of them, is just to be able to identify the people that I can help with a true strategy. I've had some people call me, the doctors. I've opened myself up to the doctors that have other patients to call me if they want to.
Sure.
And I've had 4 or 5 people call.
Yeah.
And they're
That's
like,
awesome.
where can we go with this? And then drink more water.
Yeah.
Drink a lot more water.
Yeah.
Flush it to get it out of there as quick as you can. That would be my number one. But so I don't know. Just, I'm back to who I was in my positive thinking, but with a better template.
Yeah.
And it's why you're still here. Your shirt.
I'm still here.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Right?
You're going to help a lot of people. You are, and you know, my hat's off to you. You're doing great work, and it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know if people want to find you on Facebook, you know, if they listen to this podcast and they want to have
Follow the
some more,
story.
you know, encouragement from you, they just look you up on Facebook, David Hines.
100%. For now, that's all there is. There's more to come.
You're writing a book.
I'm writing a book. There's going to be a short book. It's not going to be a novel, but it's going to be strategic. That's words used a lot today. But it's going to be strategic, and a lot of those are going to be given out to people on the floors 8, 7, 8, 9 at Barnes where they need it the most. Or when I'm getting an infusion. Now, the infusions end March 25th, I think.
Okay.
That's my last series. And I asked the doctor, the oncology doctor, when does this end? He goes, well, on your program, it's a 3-year thing. Okay, I'll do it. And I said, what after that then? He goes, well, after the last one, you just go live your life.
Yeah.
And now I got a whole new view of
I was going to say, live it differently.
Yeah, I don't have to go back
Live
to
it a
any of
lot
that stuff.
differently.
So
Live your new life.
Live your new
So
life.
that was powerful. But yeah, so Facebook, and they can see all of the videos. I think there's 37 of them still on there.
Good.
Starting on Easter Sunday, April 2021.
Okay.
Because I that was a reason I did that day. Easter's a big deal.
Sure. It sure is.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I love how open and transparent you are about everything. I love your attitude. I know Lindsey loves you, and I think that I think you went through all of this for a reason, and I think it's going to be an encouragement to a lot of people. So
I'm very
appreciate
thankful.
you sharing.
I'm thankful for today and this coming out here to see you guys.
Just beginning.
That's right.
This is all just the beginning.
Yeah, thank you.
Good
right.
work.